Feel free to take it away, Dayna.
Thank you so much, Willy. I just want to say a super amount of thanks to Rachel Mell, who produced that, and she's here. So if you want to give her a little round of applause for producing that. We started working on that, I think, in January, hoping to do a book launch in March. And of course, that all fell apart and got canceled. But she continued to work on it. And I was too nervous to share it and post it publicly because of my dear sweet grandmother, whose ancestors these are. And she is a very church-loving octogenarian who doesn't ever need to read this book or see that book trailer. But we wanted to share it with you guys. So thank you for being the premier and the premier audience of that. And thank you so much, Rachel, for putting that together. Emily Hope Price did the music and allowed us to use it for the video, and I just love it. Thank you. Dear Charles, what was it like to have 3 wives? It must have been confusing, especially since you chose women with rhyming names: Joanna, Susanna, and Hannah. Did you call them all Anna? Did you ever mix up their birthdays? Children. Was it like trying to read 3 books at once, shelving and reshelving, the plots entangling? I think it is nice you married the first 2 on the same day to quell any first wife rivalry. But when that November night wrapped you in her cold arms, which new wife lay in the next room, alone? Day 1, the hierarchy of heartache sets in. Your brides were young: Joanna, 19, Susanna, 16. 7 years later, you added Hannah, half your age. Wasn't life hard enough clearing trees, rocks, sage, burning lime and hauling timber? Wasn't it hard enough to find food for one family? Charles, I hold 2 pictures of you, one in your fine black mission suit, top hat, cane, and Brigham Young beard. Another in your black and white prison stripes. 4 months in the pen outside Salt Lake City, and here you are posing with apostles, smug as kings. Something that I love about the way that Signature Books treated this book, thank you for the finger wave, Annie, is that they published pictures, and I don't know if you can see very well the picture of my ancestor in his prison stripes in Salt Lake City, and there are 2 apostles in the picture with him. And he's the one who's being very dapper and pulling aside his prison jacket so you can see his gold pocket watch chain. So there's that. 2 caveats that I want to share about this book are that it's important for me, for people to know that I didn't write it to convince anybody to leave Mormonism or to stay in Mormonism. Rather, as I was extracting myself from orthodoxy, it helped me to read other people's stories and hear other people's stories. And I've written down my experience in a lyric and poetic way, hoping that it will help other folks who are maybe going through a similar faith transition, because I know it was very helpful for me. I also want to say that I'm not necessarily against polygamy. I am in favor of all kinds of loving formulations as long as they're consensual. And it's important for me to say that too. Where I have problems with it is if there's abuse or arm twisting involved. Like, you can only be saved if you marry into polygamy and that kind of situation. And I want to read the first poem that Sugar House Review ever published of mine. But I want to start by saying, I'm going to come back to the book, but I want to start by saying I submitted to Sugar House for years and years and received many, many rejections. I think Star Colebrook was the first person to introduce me to Sugar House. And I was like, oh, it's so magnificent. And I think the first issue had this gorgeous Paul Muldoon poem with these super long lines. I'm like, oh. So I tried for years and was rejected and kept trying and got another rejection. And in 2012, I went back and looked at my records. In 2012, I got a really, really nice rejection notice from them that said they were interested in a specific poem, but they wanted to see it pared down a little bit. So I was so excited. I took the poem, I pared it down, resubmitted it, and it was rejected again. So I have so much respect. Nano's just off the screen. I have so much respect for Sugar House. I think I gave up for a little while. And then in 2017, after doing an MFA, and I think I noticed in Nano's bio on the website that he volunteers at the Utah Shakespeare Festival. Is that right, Nano?
Yeah, I work there.
You dabble and work there?
I did work there, yeah.
Oh, you did work there. So I saw that in his bio. Here you go, sneak tips. Look at their bios. I'm like, oh, Shakespeare. I'm going to send them this weird Shakespeare poem. And this is the first poem that Sugar House published of mine. And it's called Self-Portrait as Cordelia, Mormon Polygamous Wife. And I owe this poem to Bruce Beasley, who said, why don't you write about the three, because I was writing weird post-Mormon feminist Shakespeare poems. And he said, why don't you write a poem from the perspective of Cordelia as a polygamous wife? So that's what I did. And this is the epigraph to the poem by Charles Ramsden Bailey. He says in his journal, and it's a handwritten journal with really creative spelling because he dropped out of school to work in a factory in the Manchester area of England. And he has a handwritten journal that it is at the Utah State University Historical, it's in the historical archives and you can read it online. And he has a line in there that says, I say, if plural marriage or celestial marriage is not true, then Mormonism is all, and then the word is illegible, but I think it's hoax. I think the word is hoax, but it's OACKS. Mormonism is all a oaks, maybe with his English accent, all a oaks, maybe, I don't know, okay. And then there's another epigraph from King Lear. Meantime, we shall express our darker purpose. Know that we have divided in three our kingdom. 1, Delia, he calls me, as if his mouth were too full of names to twine the full of mine around his tongue. We are trefoil clover, latched to the same stem, fixing nitrogen, converting it to the stuff of life. But now I've become the tearaway leaf, far from my husband's affection. 3rd, the put-away wife, distant as rooster from roasted hen. He used to hold me close, proud of my lace, my waves of lavender-scented hair, the crisp of my bun and starched linens, the way I can make a meal of a willow branch, boiled pigweed and thistle greens, corn cake, a skillet of sego lily bulbs. The way I churn out sun after sun, like pads of stamped butter with his milky impression. 2. Then my niggling questions surfaced. Why Father, Son, Spirit, a male-only guild for a godhead? And is Father the great polygamist with many goddess wives? And why not prophetesses in Zion, Miriams, and Deborahs and Annas. I let slip from the pantry the mouse of my doubts, let its warm brown scurry into the open, and find myself shelved, long languishing in a rough valley. Chicory and bitter herbs in my garden grow parched under desert sun. Come harvest. I'll glean grain enough to sell, sew a dress of linsey woolsey, dye the cloth with rabbit brush for yellow, then indigo for a summer green to reap again his gaze. Or maybe I'll begin with madder and a mordant, less likely to fade. 3. He frequents first wife now, enlarged her log house with an upstairs room. I who care for him know she's low burning coal in a brazier about to spill, a hearth flame without a screen, embers and ash wafting in the updraft. What she touches, she incinerates. Second wife's a cowhide copy, branded with first wife's spite. I didn't swallow in marrying him, I'd sister wife them. Both have that glib and oily art of Pharisees, all whited sepulchres with rotting bones beneath. I may as well be in another country, far from his favor and broken faith. Love and be silent. I expect we'll still, all of us, share a grave. So that was the first poem Sugar House accepted. Thank you, Sugar House. I've been a fan for such a long time. And if you could go back to 2013 and tell 2013 Dayna that someday Sugar House Review would be hosting me for an event of my own, I would have said, you're lying. There's no way. So I'm glad that I persisted. Persist, all of you. Keep sending out your poems. You never know what will happen. And read the bios of the editors, I think is what we learned there. Just kidding. But coming back to this book, I promised some Halloweeny poems this evening, some Octoberish poems. It's my mom's favorite holiday, and therefore one of mine, because that's just the way it is. So I tried to pick some Halloweenish poems to share with you from this book. So of course, I'm going to read one of the Death Mask poems. There is a newly renovated church history museum in Salt Lake that is really beautifully done. And one of the exhibits that just drew me and would hardly let me go from its spell are the death masks of Joseph Smith, right next to the death mask of Hyrum Smith. And Hyrum Smith's death mask, you can see where the bullet exited. I think death masks are fascinating and super creepy, but I just stood there staring at it for the longest time. And in the book, the two death masks, Joseph Smith's death mask and Hyrum Smith's death mask, are side by side, just as they are in the museum exhibit. This is Joseph Smith's death mask. Lacking time travel, this pale imprint is perhaps as close as I can get to a ghost. The slope of nose prominent, chin cleft, broad forehead, and those sensuous lips like a woman's. They almost smile, serene, withhold a trove that slant rhymes eternity. Stories hearth spun for family gathered around his boyhood. Gifted treasure seeker, angel seer, farmhand to famous God talker. First one wife and then all that followed furtively. 3 Masonic knocks and aproned waists, mummies with papyrus funerary texts signed Abraham, not Book of the Dead. Horses thundering pre-Columbian America. An imperturbable penetralia, those shut lips, prison of secrets, plaster cast tomb, prophet tome. Oh, enigma, whose shrouded legacy I shuck, charisma seeping a century. Those closed lips sealed like so many plates, golden, shining, silent, still, stilled, mum, shush. There are several epistolary poems in this collection, and this is another one of those to my grandpa who passed away a few years ago. So I'm counting it as a Halloweeny poem because he is no longer living, so I'm speaking to ghosts here. Dear Grandpa, every time we greeted, you'd pinch my cheek hard, too hard for the tease you meant it to be. I'd cry and you'd laugh it off. I braced myself for your fingers' vice Sundays at church. The red of my cheek, a one-sided blush. Then one day, grown to a teen, before you had the chance, I grabbed your face and pinched hard as I could. A laugh on my lips, a decade's bruises to avenge. You never tried it again. And although you've been gone years, I remember your face, snagged with surprise. This grand girl, clacking her claws. I don't love Zoom. I wish I could hear your clapping and like the poetry moves, the the hums of delight. So sterile. I heard a little something in it. It's so sterile and sharing breath. It's just not the same. It's very hard to read the room, but I'm really grateful for you taking time out of your busy lives to be here this evening. I'm liking the heart. I like the, yes, thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Now for something a little bit different for the Star Trek fans out there. This is Ponfar, and I think of it as a Halloween-y poem because of cosplay and dressing up. And also I'm married to a Vulcan, so that's great. Ponfar, if you don't know, is the Vulcan mating cycle. In the absence of Vulcan mind melds and Betazoid empathic powers, we fall back on human abilities to read each other, our imperfect transference of inflected syllable and raised eyebrow, our faulty system of sentences, gestures. Would we be better off, Borg, all hive mind, hooked up to the neural paths of each other's thoughts, emptying into and drawing from the same deep reserve. No guesswork, in sync. But our tech doesn't extend that far, my laconic love. I want to touch your logical face, thumb in the dip between chin and lip, fingers bracing cheekbones arch. I want to close my eyes and exit nerves' blue shoots, channeling through your Jeffries tubes, turbo lifts, warp engine. What's hiding here on the holodeck? A banquet hall with table runners, roasted swan fistfuls of rose petals, tarnished candelabras lifting up a boar's head on the wall. I want the old blood fever to take, blaze the cold grate, so even across the room, we can sense each other's temperatures rise. You in dress uniform, or no uniform at all. That is a weird poem, but I just shared it with you. So so it was featured on Verse Daily, which I was very grateful for. And in order to be considered for Verse Daily, you send your book, right? And I'm like, of all of the poems that JP Dancing Bear could have picked, he picked the nerdiest, weird, sexy Star Trek nerdiest, I think I said nerdiest already, poem to put on Verse Daily. And grateful, like I said, super grateful, but also, really? That one? It's fine. I'm fine with it. It's fine. And Charles is fine with it too. I have decided every time I read from this book, I have to read the poem that I wrote for my mom, because this book wouldn't exist without my mother. In a nutshell, it's a book about my ancestors' conversion to Mormonism and my deconversion from orthodoxy, from Orthodox Mormonism. And that was sparked, the catalyst for that was my mom's coming out. While I was serving a mission in Quebec, she met and fell in love with her now wife, Kim. I love you guys. But they felt like they had to hide it from me for a long time. For about 10 years, my mom did not tell me about their relationship. I'm not proud of that. But I was not in a place where she could have told me. Yeah, that would have not gone well. Usually you hear the other kind of story, right? About the young person who is afraid of coming out to Orthodox conservative parents, but this is one of those weird situations where my mom couldn't come out to me. But she eventually did, and I'm glad she did. It made a huge change in my heart. So this is Dear Mom. December lady. The day you came out to me, I was in my hibernacle, so comfortable in the warm smell of my own pelt and the cave's dry envelope where I slept in a ball, dreaming of silver fish and spring. You startled me awake with your crunching feet, bearing news through a fresh fall. I had smelled winter from my hideaway, but you took me by the paw. Accustomed to dark, my eyes sought blindly. Snow sheathed the pine needles. You showed me what I'd slept through at every hint of frost. Snow sculpted into waves. No doubt, you feared the probability of my bite, my claws. Snow fell soft, each flake filigreed, scintillant. You're human, after all, and one swipe could have finished you. I took off my thick coat, felt colds blow, what you'd borne these hush-mouth years. I yanked teeth from my jaws. How sharp. Tore razors from my fingers. How many cuts. Left den behind. Shoulder to shoulder in my ample fur. You teach me to forage for winterberry and root. No need to devour your heart. I wish I wish that it hadn't taken knowing somebody in my own family. I wish it hadn't taken that to change my ideas and my opinions about homosexuality, but in my case, it did. And I'm really grateful that my mom did eventually tell me, and that effected in my life a complete 180 on my position and my views. And now I hope to be an advocate and an ally. And so hopefully this book is doing a little bit of that work too. So as I extracted myself from orthodoxy, one of the ways that I have been finding maybe a path back towards spirituality is to think about the feminine divine and explore that a little bit. Within Mormonism, there's the concept of God the Father and Jesus and the Holy Ghost, who are all male. And there is the idea in Mormon theology that there's God the Mother, but she's not spoken about very much. It's very much taboo, although people are doing the work to undo that, which I'm grateful for. So this book has some poems that begin to lean in that direction. And this is the title poem of the collection, If Mother Braids a Waterfall. In a country where no one speaks her language, if she's a shrine, few bow to, few supplicate. If she's a book no one reads, verses rich as incantation. If Mother weaves a forest floor from tree roots in a swath of clear cut, if she untangles rivers into tributary threads, the beds long since dry. If she's a gold rush with no prospectors, a queen bee with no drones, honeycomb without attendants. If in the morning Mother conducts a chorus of larks, if at night a throng of nightingales, if her children sleep through the song, if she holds a rope through an oubliette's trapdoor, calls down to us, but we focus on the guard pushing grub through the bean slot once a day. His thrilling fingertips, his footstep echoing as he walks away. If we look up at last, if we relearn mother tongue through hard listening, if she's the one and only, not one of many, a clairvoix of Egyptian glass in the stucco's arabesque, a gold seam for our brokenness, our shards, an arroyo parched for the rain of our praise, if she's starscape, all dark and blaze and hungry for our eyes. How's everybody doing? You doing well? How does 2 more poems sound? That sound good? 2 more? Okay. I want to share one more recent poem that recently came out in Carolina Quarterly. Thank you, Calvin. Also got many, many rejections from Carolina Quarterly. Woo! But this is a poem in the voice of God the Mother. When I had the opportunity to co-edit Dub's song, some of my favorite poems in that collection actually speak in the voice of this mother god, which I thought was fantastically brave and also maybe full of hubris, and I wanted to try. So I've been churning out some of these poems, and this is one of my favorites, and I'm really glad that Carolina Quarterly published it. This is God the Mother Speaks with a Mouth of Ocean, and I think it's Halloween-y because there's a vampire squid in it. So, There's a short epigraph. How far can you go if you concentrate? How far down? Charles Wright. Shh, be still. Listen to my saline pulse. You are such I-minded children. Listen. When sailors stumble on my sublime, they are as likely to cry Leviathan as mermaid. Then carve me into the bows of their ships. They think to seal my water's salt-kissed lips. I tentacle cradle their bones. If you desire an image, dream Chromis viridis, damselfish in a blue-green dress. Dream Arowana, bony tongue, my eminence grease moving the deeps, harboring silence. Pass me quilled plume of sea pen, and I'll sketch my likeness in shades of mantis shrimp and harlequin bass. You've puzzled over how to imagine my skin. Here I reveal a mystery of chromatophore and papillae. I shift to pattern of passing cloud, polyp my body to resemble reefs of Gorgonian coral, Venus fan and cherry blossom and purple sea whip. In my hadal palace, where darelight dares not seep, close your eyes. Here, you must kindle your own hidden fires, bright pulsing, like my comb jellies and jewel squids and brittle stars. Water babies, enwombed in dark, you must learn to switch on your body's buried glow, its secret brilliance. Then listen, harder. Hear my song in the current carried hum, the beat of sea angel wings, the siphoning jet of a vampire squid, its black cloak open like a mouth to catch whatever is able to reach my midnight abyss, this asylum hushaby of marine snow. I feel so lucky to live on the coast in this beautiful place, and we just this summer were brave enough to put the canoe in the bay, and I've been spotting jellyfish and really wanting to reach in there and touch them, but I haven't. I'm simultaneously just enchanted and also terrified by the deep water. So as part of the drawing in just a little bit, we're going to be giving away a couple of copies of my newest chapbook, Titania in Yellow, which came out just about a year ago. So I thought I should read one poem from Titania in Yellow to close us out. And I think I'll read the first poem, Self-Portrait as Titania, Spellbound. Methought I was enamored of an ass. When I hear his throat song, his supple musics, I see him what he is. A breath of beast I kiss his black lips, his tombstone enormous teeth, nipping skin. Stroke long velvet ears against my cheek, his rising musk in the night like eglantine. We pull out tongues of honeysuckle, suck nectar under a froth of stars, wild time blows. The ox lips seal our secrets. Yonder sulks Oberon in flawless barren fields. On this moss luscious bank, give me again, ample animal. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening.